Good morning. How you doing? You're smiling at me. It's a good start when you're smiling at me. I read to you a passage that we're going to turn to at the end, and we will get there. While I'm waiting for that to play cricket, I'll introduce myself to you. My name is Simon. Does anybody not know me? Yes, if you don't know me. Does anybody not know me? Yes, if you don't know me, if you've never met me before. Well, for the benefit of you, my name is Simon Brawn. I'm actually Anne and Barry's son-in-law, and to think about it then, I was going to say I'm married to their really best-looking daughter, but seeing as my sister-in-law is sat next to my father, I'm married to one of their really good-looking daughters, and I've got 5 children, ranging from 2 to 22. So one's driving and one's driving me mad, and I'm the Halfway Community Church, which is just a good stone's throw away from here. This morning, that's part of a whole bigger picture of things that God's been speaking to us about over in Halfway Community Church, and hopefully some of that will help with you. This still isn't playing cricket for me. Have I got any pictures on there? Can you get me a picture up there? There we go. That's the one. Oh, that's the one. I might need to give you the nod and get you to push them through. Is that all right? You just touch the screen. So, has anyone seen this picture before? Give me a wave if you've seen this picture before. Is it one that you've seen before? No one you're familiar with? This picture, if you flick it onto the next one, it'll be a little bit bigger, should be. Next slide. It's failing me. There we go. Look. This is a painting called Andre by the Hospitality of Abraham, and the idea of that is that actually when Abraham encountered God and he had the 3 visitors, this is supposed to kind of depict that scene a little bit of these 3 visitors. But either way, the idea of this picture is symbolizing God. Now, some people like this picture, some people don't like this picture. But if you have a God, now some people like this picture, some people don't like this picture. But if you have a good look at this picture, there's something that or some things that you may notice. But one of the things I want you to notice this morning is that while they look very together and very, they're all facing inward, there's also at the front a fairly large space. And the idea is that this space is set there on purpose, almost inviting someone to join them at the table. And that's part of what I want us to think about this morning, is the idea of actually God inviting us into, and we have been looking at our church over the last few years, and one of them is the idea of communion with God, the idea that we're in relationship with God, that we're somehow intertwined with God and connected with God in a very powerful way. The others are community and commission. Those are the three sort of words within session this morning. I want us just to think about the idea of being invited into relationship with God. And it's a significant and powerful idea that we can say very quickly, and we can talk very quickly. And for those people like me, maybe that have been in church all their lives, I know the right answers to the right questions because I did them all in Sunday school. I know that I have a relationship with God, but I want us just to take a thought. Just, what does that really mean in the everydays? What does it really mean? And how deep can we allow that concept to run in our lives, to see things change for us? If I can get you to push me on another slide on me. Do you think it might work from here now? Not there. There we go. Another famous picture. So, how many people have seen this one? I thought we might have gone there. So this is from where? Sistine Chapel, yeah. And so underneath I've put there one of the only Latin phrases I've learned. I think I've learned 2 at Theology College. And this is the Imago Dei, the idea of the image of God. And this picture is the close-up of what is like God. The close-up of what is like God giving life to Adam, if you like. This is the picture. And the connection and the power of this is highly significant. Very famous picture, but it carries huge meaning. If we start to think about our ideas, that we are more than we realized in the first place. We're more than we know. And this painting and this picture and this idea of God sort of being connected. We are made in his image and we are given life by his power and by his breath. There is something about this that creates a deep yearning inside of us, or connects to a deep yearning inside of us. The idea of reconnecting with our Creator is a significant one. It's one that people have chased after for thousands of years. Meaning is something that sooner or later, as human beings, we end up looking for. And the idea of reconnecting with our Creator and entering in sort of always intended relationship releases identity, it releases purpose, and it gives fulfillment. It's part of who we actually are, whatever it is. And you will see all kinds of things telling us who we are, or what we need, or what life is all about, and what's the next thing that we need to do to discover our true identity and have more purpose and have fulfillment. And the bottom line is that it doesn't take a genius to figure out, as we look around the celebrities and we look around the bottom line is that it doesn't take a genius to figure out, as we look around the celebrities and we look around the lifestyles and we look around the newspapers, that actually everything that's projected to us is often ends deeply tragically, because we read of lives, broken lives. We read of situations where people end their lives. We hear all sorts of things in the media, and yet we've looked at those people and we thought they've got it all, and clearly they haven't got it all. Clearly there is great big huge gaps in the whole system and way of thinking. And so this morning I want us to think about the idea of relationship with God, and the idea of a relationship with God, and the idea of a reconnection with our Creator, the idea of always intended relationship, the idea that actually we were always intended for relationship with God. You were always intended for relationship with your Creator. That in that relationship, you rediscover identity, you rediscover purpose, and you engage in fulfillment. I've got a few characters that I'd like us to have a look at on this journey, so if we can go on to the next one. One of my favourite passages, and in fact one of my favourite characters, is Moses. And I've put up, in fact, one of my favourite characters is Moses. And I've put up a quote there, and I'll read that to you in a moment. But Moses walked, talked, and even argued with God. So outrageous. But we read it. We read that Moses had firm negotiations with God. Negotiation wasn't very great, but nevertheless, he knew God enough to recognize that God wanted this kind of relationship with him. He welcomed this discussion, and we find that this robust character of Moses in his relationship with God has moments where he just obediently followed. He had moments where he wanted to find out what was going on. He wanted to know more. He wanted to find out who and what was taking place. He wanted to make his point known to God. But I want us to think for a moment. Moses had an encounter with God, and we know the story of the burning bush. And Moses saw the burning bush. We know the story of the burning bush. And Moses saw the burning bush, and he was drawn to look. And in that moment of encounter, Moses' life was changed forever. Something happened when he encountered God. Something happened when Moses stopped to look. Something happened when he was drawn. His attention was what this was, this burning. There was a moment of encounter that changed forever. But what changed was, yes, something happened then, but what changed really was that relationship opened up. Before that, he was guessing. He was trying to figure it out. He was trying to find meaning and looking all sorts of places. But in that moment of encounter, all of a sudden, relationship with God was opened up to him. And a new thing was birthed into his life. And if you know the story, God led Moses through all kinds of fears, doubts, and hardship. Moses led the people of Israel all manner of incredible experiences as he walked with God. Moses was transformed as he went. He changed as he went. And often we think, someone becomes a Christian and we're expecting great change, and often that's a lot slower. I'm still on my way, changing piece by piece, moment by moment. And as I journey with God, I am changed. And that's the true story with God. I am changed. And that's the true story of the gospel, that as we walk with God in relationship through Jesus Christ, we're changed. Moses was the same here. As he was walking with God, as he journeyed through the good, the bad, and the difficult stuff that he went through, he was changed. The world. And I would go as far as to say that anyone's relationship with God will impact the world. God was working out his plan. He was working out his plan in Moses' life. He was working out his plan in the people of Israel's lives. And he was working out his plan in the world. In the people of Israel's lives. And he was working out his plan in the world. God's desire is to have people who know him personally. That nothing would get in the way of this desired relationship with his own creation. That has been his desire from the very beginning, to be in relationship with people, face to face as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses returned to the camp, but his young aide Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing you've asked, because I am pleased with you and know you by name. And Moses said, now show me your glory. And there's this wonderful picture. And Moses said, now show me your glory. And there's this wonderful picture. If you haven't read it, I haven't got time to go through it all with you this morning, but I strongly recommend you have a good look at Exodus 33 and have a read through there, because you see this man in relationship with God, and he gets bold enough to say, now show me your glory. He gets bold enough to have this relationship. He comes and he speaks and presents his case to, and says, I will do the very thing you've asked, because I'm pleased with you and I know you by name. This is a picture for us of relationship. Desires with people, the kind of relationship that God desires with you. And this is the Old Testament. And so I wanted to we've recently had Christmas. Can we have a look at the next picture on that roll? We've recently had Christmas. You can't quite see that. It's a bit dark in the light here. But we've coming of Christ. Whilst we recognize that once a year with celebrations and our Christmas events, and we tell the story, which is a great thing to do. But we know as Christians, we know as people who have a relationship with Jesus, that the impact of Jesus coming in the world, we actually celebrate every day. We celebrate that Jesus came into the world every day because it's of Jesus coming in the world. We actually celebrate every day. We celebrate that Jesus came into the world every day because it's the game changer. It's the game changer. So we know that Moses had a relationship with God, and we know that there are various people throughout history in the Old Testament that had relationships with God. But Jesus coming was the game changer, because when Jesus came, everything changed. Look at this next one. Maybe another picture that you recognize. Anyone seen this picture? You should have seen this picture if you've been to the Manchester Art Gallery, Mosley Street, British artist. And this picture is quite significant. It doesn't take a long time to figure out what's going on. It's called Shadow of Death, and you can see Jesus, the carpenter, in the carpenter's workshop, but behind him you can see the shadow of the cross. And the idea of Jesus is coming at our Christmas celebrations, but actually we also know, and we have Easter ahead of us in our church calendar, we also know that Jesus came to die on a cross and take the sin of the whole world upon himself and provide a way that we could have access to God and relationship with God, so that the sins and the junk that and provide a way that we could have access to God and relationship with God, so that the sins and the junk that separate us from God, the things that keep all people from God, were placed on Christ on the cross, and that we now, because that's lifted from us, have access to God. And this is a huge thing, because it opens up relationship for all. We've heard the histories of the ones and twos. We've heard the Abrahams, the Moses, the Elijahs. We've heard the histories in the Old Testament, but Jesus coming opened the door for everyone through Christ to have a relationship with God. He cried out on the cross, it's fit, and a new thing emerged, the new season of relationship with God. entitled this about communion. And the idea, when we take bread and wine together, we call communion, is that recognition of our relationship, our agreement, our new agreement with God through the body and blood of Jesus Christ. There is between God and mankind for everyone who would respond to this message of following him. So I've been speaking to you for a few minutes, and I still haven't referred to the reading that I read. So I'd like us to have a look at that reading again. And I've got one last picture, if we could stick this one up there. So I'd like us to have a look at that reading again. And I've got one last picture, if we could stick this one up there. It's probably one of my favourite pictures. I've got no idea who it is or where it's from. I've come across it somewhere. I couldn't tell you. I like it. I need to click it again. I build it well. There we go. I like it. And this is the picture from the reading that I read to you. Just to remind you, after Jesus had died and risen, so the others are like, well, we're not really sure what else we're going to do, so we're going to go fishing too. And so they went fishing, and of course what happens when you're in a place of dilemma and feeling down, you try your very best and nothing works, and they've been fishing all night and caught nothing. And everyone felt like they've been fishing all night and caught nothing. I've had that feeling several times. And they've been fishing all night, and they caught nothing. And then all of a sudden, somebody appears on the bank and shouts out to them, have you got any fish? And I wonder if the deja vu for them started to kick in. And I've heard this before somewhere. And he says, throw your net on the other side. Throw your net on the right side of the boat. So they threw their net on the right side of the boat. And all of a sudden it filled with fish. And they had this huge catch of fish. And John, or the disciple that Jesus loved, John said, it's the master. He recognized him immediately. Peter, often slow on the uptake, but always first with his boots on, or whatever, in this case his coat on. Often slow on the uptake, but always first with his boots on, or whatever, in this case his coat on. Why he put his coat on to jump into the water, I never figure it out. But that's what the story says he did. He jumped in, and he wanted to get to Jesus first. Peter, who had betrayed Jesus in the lead up to his death, Peter who had let him down, Peter who was probably feeling the weight of guilt, he was the first one out and swam to the shore. And when he got to the shore, what did he find? He found Jesus having made a fire, having some bread and some fish on the fire. After he'd sent him back to the boat for some more fish, they invited him. A beautiful picture of real relationship, nothing is. Jesus cooked them breakfast. The risen Jesus, the Saviour of the whole world, cooked breakfast on the beach for his disciples. And in the same way as the first picture had the table open, I see this picture as Jesus again in a type opening up the table, opening up that place of hospitality and inviting him. So what I say to you this morning, well, what I would say to you is the invitation is clearly there for you. This invitation is not just a one-time thing. Invitation to relationship with God. This invitation is not just a one-time thing. Invitation to relationship with God is something that we access at a certain point in our lives when we say yes. And I don't know whether all of you have said yes or just some of you have said yes at some point or other in time to this relationship with God through Christ Jesus. But what I want to remind you of this morning, that actually this relationship is open all the time. All day long, every day. This is something that has changed. It's something that has changed 2,000 years ago on the cross, and it's something that changed for you in your life when you first put your faith in Christ. He is calling to the breakfast on the beach. I don't know about you, but I don't have breakfast on the beach enough with Jesus. I flip through my life too quickly, overlooking the opportunity that lies in front of me. But there is no meaning, no purpose, or any kind of fulfillment outside of that relationship with Jesus. Our desires will be frustrated. Our unique character and powerful identity that God put within each one of us will never develop on our own. Without Jesus, we will live with insecurities. We will live as powerless people. We will operate from fear. We will strive for Jesus. We will live with insecurities. We will live as powerless people. We will operate from fear. We will strive for significance. And yet we are made truly for a relationship with God. We really do need breakfast on the beach with Jesus. Breakfast on the beach with Jesus is the place where our character and our identity is nurtured. Here we become powerful. Here we become secure. Here we become unafraid people. Here our deep desires are fulfilled and not frustrated. Here, Father, we thank you so much for sending our Savior, Jesus, from heaven to earth on the most audacious rescue mission ever. Thank you for the depth of love that took Jesus to the cross and took the sins and the weight of guilt on himself as he hung. I want to thank you that as he hung. I want to thank you that when Jesus cried out, "It's finished," and the veil in the temple tore from top to bottom, that something new began. That something new that began was relationship for us with you. Unhindered. Undeterred. Forgive us when we take that relationship too lightly or too easily. Forgive us when we choose not to engage with your desire, but us to simply engage with you in that wonderful relationship. Holy Spirit, will you come and empower our worship, empower our Bible reading, empower our prayer lives, empower our conversations with one another, that we will know